Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The garage smelled like motor oil and broken promises. I sat hunched over my pickup's engine at midnight, wrench in hand, listening to my wife's voice drift through the kitchen window. Ayla thought I couldn't hear her, but sound carries differently at night in Mossfield, especially when you're trying not to listen. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered into her phone. "Rhett's getting suspicious." My name is Rhett Vossen, and I run a small tool shed manufacturing company in this forgotten corner of the Midwest. Mossfield used to matter, back when the factories hummed and people had money to spend. Now it's the kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do, where the biggest excitement comes from watching your neighbors' marriages implode. I should have confronted her right then. Instead, I tightened a bolt that didn't need tightening and pretended my world wasn't cracking apart like old paint. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. My daughter Sierra stomped into the garage, her face twisted with teenage fury and something else. Disappointment, maybe. At 18, she'd inherited her mother's sharp features and my stubborn streak, a combination that made family dinners feel like diplomatic negotiations. "Dad, stop being such a creep," she snapped, not bothering with pleasantries. "Mom's just getting what you never gave her." I looked up from the engine, wiping grease on my jeans. "And what exactly is it that I never gave her?" "Attention, romance, a reason to stay interested." Sierra crossed her arms, looking like a prosecutor delivering closing arguments. Hayes actually listens to her. Hayes. There it was, the name I'd been dreading. Hayes Rellin, local gym owner and self-appointed town hero. The kind of guy who posted shirtless workout videos and called it motivation. The kind of guy who'd apparently been motivating my wife right out of our marriage. "Hayes, huh?" I kept my voice level, casual. "That's interesting. Don't act like you don't know." Sierra's voice carried that special brand of cruelty that only family can deliver. "Everyone's talking about it. Mom deserves better than this dump and your sarcastic attitude." She gestured around the garage, my sanctuary filled with tools, half-finished projects, and the accumulated debris of 20 years in business. To her, it probably looked like failure. To me, it represented every small victory I'd managed to scratch out in a town that ate dreams for breakfast. "Your mother's an adult," I said finally. "She can make her own choices. At least you're not denying it." Sierra turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I think you're both idiots. But she's trying to be happy and you're just existing." The garage fell silent after she left, except for the distant hum of the refrigerator and the tick of cooling metal. I stared at the engine, seeing my reflection fractured in the chrome air filter. 43 years old, graying at the temples, hands permanently stained with honest work. When had I become the villain in my own story? I walked inside, moving carefully through the darkened house. Ayla's purse sat on the kitchen counter, her laptop open beside it. The screen glowed with our joint insurance portal. She'd forgotten to log out. That's when I saw it. Dr. Arden Weller's office. Treatment for chlamydia. Ayla's name on the claim dated 3 weeks ago. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the records, finding a second claim from the same day, same diagnosis, different patient. Hayes Rellin. The pieces clicked together with the cold precision of a well-oiled machine. The late-night phone calls, the training sessions at Hayes' gym, the new lingerie I'd found in the laundry, tag still attached, the way she flinched when I touched her, like I was contaminated. I screenshotted everything, my phone's camera flash, illuminating the kitchen like lightning. Evidence, proof. The smoking gun I'd never wanted to find. Upstairs, Ayla slept peacefully. Her dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. She looked younger in sleep, more like the woman I'd married 20 years ago. The woman who'd laughed at my jokes and believed in my dreams before Mossfield ground them down to dust. I thought about waking her, demanding explanations, starting the fight that would end everything. Instead, I went back to the garage and finished working on the truck. Some conversations are better had in daylight, when you can see the damage clearly. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling. typical Mossfield weather that matched the town's perpetual mood. I made coffee and waited, watching Ayla move through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. She wore her lawyer clothes, a sharp blue suit that cost more than most people in town made in a week. Her firm specialized in personal injury cases, helping people navigate the aftermath of accidents and betrayals. The irony wasn't lost on me. "You're up early," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" I sipped my coffee, studying her face. "Funny thing about our insurance. Did you know they send notifications for every claim?" Her hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. "What do you mean?" "Dr. Weller's office. 3 weeks ago. Interesting coincidence that Hayes filed the same claim on the same day." The color drained from her face, leaving her looking pale and exposed. "Rhett, I can explain." "Can you?" I leaned back in my chair, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Because I'm genuinely curious about the explanation for this one." She sat down heavily, her composure cracking like ice on a warm day. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything." "Which part? The cheating or the infection?" "Don't be crude." "Crude?" I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Ayla, you gave me an STI. Crude doesn't begin to cover this situation. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The firm, the bills, Sierra's college fund. So, you decided to work out your stress with Hayes Rellin. It just happened. He was there, he listened, and apparently he shared more than just his feelings." She flinched like I'd slapped her. I'm so sorry, Rhett. It's over now. I ended it." "When?" "Yesterday, after I got the test results." I nodded slowly, processing this information. "So, you're sorry you got caught, not sorry you did it. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the linoleum. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation before you decided to redecorate our marriage." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, needing space to think, to plan, to figure out how to navigate this new reality. Ayla called after me, but I didn't turn around. Some conversations end before they begin. The drive through town took me past all the familiar landmarks of my shrinking world. The shuttered factory where my father had worked, the high school where Sierra would graduate in 2 months, the gym where my wife had apparently discovered new forms of exercise. I parked outside Mick's Tavern, the kind of dive bar that served as Mossfield's unofficial therapy center. Mick Torino had been my friend since high school, back when we thought the world owed us something. Now we knew better. "Little early, even for you," Mick said as I walked in. The place smelled like stale beer and disappointment, with undertones of industrial-strength disinfectant. "Coffee," I said, sliding onto a bar stool, "and whatever wisdom you're dispensing today." "Wisdom's extra." He poured coffee from a pot that had seen better decades. "You look like someone ran over your dog." "Worse. Someone ran over my marriage." I told him everything. The insurance claims, the confrontation, Ayla's non-apology apology. Mick listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making non-committal sounds. When I finished, he refilled my cup and leaned against the bar. "So, what's the plan?" he asked. "Plan? You're Rhett Vossen. You don't take anything lying down, especially not this. So, what's the plan?" I stared into my coffee, seeing my reflection distorted in the dark surface. "I don't know yet." "Well, when you figure it out, make sure it hurts where they least expect it. The physical stuff heals. The other stuff, that sticks around." I left the tavern with mixed words echoing in my head. Make it hurt where they least expect it. The idea had a certain appeal, like a song you can't stop humming. My phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. "Mom's crying. Fix this." I typed back, "Some things can't be fixed." Her response came immediately. "Then don't make it worse." Too late for that, I thought. Way too late. The next few days passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Ayla and I moved around each other like polite strangers, maintaining the fiction of our marriage for Sierra's benefit. But Mossfield is a small town, and secrets have a way of growing legs. Mrs. Bragg, our 70-something neighbor, had positioned herself as the unofficial town crier. She spent her days stationed at her front window, documenting the comings and goings of everyone within a 3-block radius. Her intel network rivaled anything the government had put together. "Morning, Rhett," she called from her porch as I loaded tools into my truck. "Heard Ayla's been spending a lot of time at that new gym." "People need exercise," I replied, not breaking stride. "Oh, I'm sure she's getting plenty of that." Mrs. Bragg's smile could have cut glass. "Hayes is such a dedicated trainer. Very hands-on approach, from what I hear." The whole town knew. Of course they did. In Mossfield, trying to keep an affair secret was like trying to hide a bonfire in your backyard. Someone always saw the smoke. I drove to my workshop, a converted warehouse on the edge of town, where I manufactured custom storage sheds and outdoor furniture. My business partner, Len Kowalski, was already there, assembling a garden shed with the methodical precision of a man who'd spent 40 years working with his hands. "You look terrible," he said without looking up from his work. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." Ayla still playing house with the musclehead? Len had the social graces of a sledgehammer, but he was loyal and reliable. Qualities in short supply these days. We'd started the business together 15 years ago with nothing but ambition and a shared hatred of working for other people. Something like that. "You want my advice?" "Not particularly. I'm giving it anyway. Cut your losses, take half of everything, and start over somewhere else. This town's finished anyway." He wasn't wrong. Mossfield was circling the drain, another casualty of economic forces beyond anyone's control. Young people left for college and never came back. Businesses closed or moved to bigger cities. The population had shrunk by 30% in the last decade. But running felt like surrender, and I'd never been good at surrendering. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Then you better have a plan, because right now you look like a man getting played." That afternoon, I decided to visit Hayes's gym. Ostensibly, I was there to work out, something I'd neglected for too long. In reality, I wanted to see the battlefield, where my marriage had been dismantled. Elite Fitness occupied a converted auto dealership on Main Street, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Hayes had done a good job with the renovation, I had to admit. The equipment was new, the space was clean, and motivational posters covered every available wall surface. Hayes himself was leading a group fitness class when I walked in. 6'2", broad shoulders, the kind of tan that came from a bottle rather than honest outdoor work. He moved with the easy confidence of a man who'd never been told no, never had to worry about mortgage payments or insurance premiums or any of the mundane realities that define most people's lives. He spotted me immediately, his smile faltering for just a moment, before snapping back into place. "Rhett, great to see you, man. Finally decided to get in shape?" Something like that. "Well, you came to the right place. We'll have you looking like a new man in no time." The irony was thick enough to spread on toast. Hayes was offering to remake me, while he'd been busy unmaking my marriage. I signed up for a membership and scheduled a training session, playing the part of the clueless husband. Over the next week, I became a regular at Elite Fitness. I worked out with grim determination, pushing my 43-year-old body harder than I had in years. More importantly, I listened. I watched. I learned. The gym was Hayes's kingdom, and he ruled it, with the casual arrogance of a man who believed his own hype. He flirted with every attractive woman who walked through the door, dispensing compliments and touching shoulders with practiced ease. The married ones seemed especially receptive to his attention. I wasn't his only victim. I was just the most recent. "Your form's improving," Hayes said during one of our training sessions. "Ayla mentioned you were getting more serious about fitness." "Did she?" "Yeah, she's been coming in pretty regularly. Great attitude, really committed to her goals." I bet she was. "She's always been dedicated," I said, loading more weight onto the bar. "When she sets her mind to something, she goes all in. That's what I like to see. Total commitment." I lifted the weight, feeling the burn in my shoulders and arms. Hayes spotted me, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and cloying that probably cost more than I made in a day. You know, he said as I racked the bar, Ayla's lucky to have a guy who supports her goals. Not every husband would be cool with his wife spending so much time at the gym. I want her to be happy. That's what marriage is about, right? Making each other happy. The conversation felt like a chess match, where only one player knew the rules. Hayes was testing me, probing to see how much I knew, how much I suspected. He thought he was clever, but cleverness and intelligence aren't the same thing. That evening, I found Ayla in our bedroom, packing clothes into her overnight bag, the same leather travel bag I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. She looked up guiltily when I walked in. Girls' night, she said quickly.
Since when do you carry men's cologne to the gym?
It's my trainer's. He left it.
Your trainer keeps his cologne.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Jillian's having some people over. Jillian Reeves, Ayla's best friend since college, a divorce attorney who specialized in extracting maximum alimony from unsuspecting husbands. The kind of friend who encouraged bad decisions and called it empowerment. Have fun, I said. You're not going to ask where I'm going? Would you tell me the truth if I did? She flinched, zipping the bag with unnecessary force. I'm trying to figure things out, Rhett. I need space to think. Take all the space you need. She paused at the bedroom door, looking back at me with something that might have been regret. This isn't how I wanted things to go. How did you want them to go? I don't know. Differently. After she left, I sat on our bed and stared at the empty closet. Half her clothes were gone, along with her jewelry box and the framed photo of us from our honeymoon in Colorado. She was moving out in installments, taking pieces of our life together and reassembling them somewhere else. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your wife's Instagram. I opened the app and found Ayla's latest post, a photo of her and Hayes at some upscale restaurant across town. They weren't touching, weren't obviously together, but the body language told the whole story. She looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. The comments were brutal. Get it, girl. You deserve this. About time. Rhett who? I scrolled through dozens of responses, watching our marriage get dissected by acquaintances and strangers. The humiliation burned like acid, eating away at whatever dignity I had left. Sierra appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of teenage disgust. Everyone at school's talking about it. Do you know how embarrassing this is for me? I'm not the one posting pictures. You're not doing anything. You're just sitting here feeling sorry for yourself while mom moves on with her life. What would you like me to do? Fight for her. Show her you care. Do something other than hide in the garage like a wounded animal. She stormed out, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the wreckage of my family. Outside, Mrs. Bragg was watering her flowers, but I knew she was really watching our house, documenting the latest chapter in the Vossen family drama. I walked to the kitchen and opened a beer, my first drink in months. The alcohol tasted like surrender, like admitting defeat. But sometimes surrender's just another word for strategy. My phone rang. Mick's name appeared on the screen. You see the Instagram post? He asked. Yeah. Half the town's talking about it. The other half's pretending they haven't seen it. Great. You know what this is, right? This is her throwing it in your face. She wants you to react. Maybe I should give her what she wants. Now you're talking. What did you have in mind? I looked out the kitchen window at Hayes' truck parked across the street. He'd apparently graduated from secret meetings to open house calls. The audacity was almost impressive. I'm still working on that, I said. But the plan was already forming, taking shape like storm clouds on the horizon. Ayla wanted to play games? Fine. I'd been playing nice for 20 years, trying to be the good husband, the responsible father, the reliable provider. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to stop being the victim and start being the villain. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It started small, with subtle changes that most people wouldn't notice. I began working out harder at Hayes' gym, pushing my body until my muscles screamed in protest. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I needed the physical outlet for the rage building inside me. "Looking good, man," Hayes said during one of our sessions. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Just trying to be the best version of myself. That's the spirit. Self-improvement is a journey, not a destination." He spoke in motivational poster cliches, the kind of empty wisdom that sounded profound until you thought about it for more than 5 seconds. But his clients ate it up, especially the lonely housewives who made up a significant portion of his membership base. I'd started paying attention to the patterns. Hayes had a type: married women in their late 30s or early 40s, successful but unfulfilled, looking for something their husbands couldn't provide. He offered them attention, validation, and the illusion of being desired. In return, they offered him money, status, and access to their social circles. It was a business model refined through years of practice. "You know," I said, spotting him on the bench press, "Ayla really appreciates all the personal attention you've given her. She's a special lady. You're a lucky guy." "I used to think so." He finished his set and sat up, studying my face with new interest. "Everything okay at home?" "Define okay. You guys having problems?" "What makes you ask?" "Just, you seem different lately. More focused. Like, you're working through something." I was working through something, all right. I was working through 20 years of being the nice guy, the understanding husband, the man who always took the high road, even when it led nowhere. "Marriage is complicated," I said. "Tell me about it." "But that's why I stay single. Too much drama, you know? Too much drama." He'd helped destroy my marriage and called it drama, like it was some minor inconvenience instead of the systematic demolition of everything I'd built. That night, I drove past the Riverside Motel on the outskirts of town. Hayes' truck was parked outside room 12, next to a familiar blue sedan. I didn't need to see the license plate to know it was Ayla's car. They weren't even trying to be discreet anymore. I parked across the street and waited, watching the lit window like a detective on a stakeout. 2 hours later, Ayla emerged first, checking her appearance in the side mirror before driving away. Hayes followed 10 minutes later, whistling as he walked to his truck. The next morning, I found Ayla in the kitchen, making coffee with the casual ease of someone who hadn't spent the previous evening in a cheap motel room. "How was your evening?" I asked. "Fine. Quiet. I went to bed early." "That's good. Rest is important." She looked at me suspiciously, waiting for the accusation that didn't come. I'd learned something valuable over the past few weeks. Sometimes the most effective weapon is silence. Let people fill the void with their own guilt and paranoia. "Rhett, we need to talk." "About what?" "About us. About where this is going." I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one Sierra had made for me in middle school art class. It was lopsided and painted in garish colors, but it was mine in a way that nothing else seemed to be anymore. "Where do you think it's going?" I asked. "I don't know. That's the problem." "Seems pretty clear to me. You're moving on with your life, and I'm adjusting to the new reality. It doesn't have to be like this." "Like what?" "Cold. Distant. Like we're strangers." I laughed, surprising both of us. "Ayla, we are strangers. I don't know who you are anymore, and I'm not sure you ever really knew me." "That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked about my work, my dreams, my fears? When's the last time you looked at me and saw something other than a paycheck and a reliable babysitter?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "I never meant for this to happen," she said finally. "But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done pretending everything's fine. I'm done being the understanding husband who looks the other way while you figure yourself out. I'm done being invisible in my own life." "Rhett, I'm not finished." My voice carried an edge I'd never used with her before. "You want space? You've got it. You want to explore your options? Go ahead. But don't expect me to sit here like a faithful dog waiting for you to come home." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, leaving her standing in the kitchen with her mouth hanging open. It felt good to have the last word for once, to be the one walking away instead of the one being left behind. At work, Len was installing hardware on a custom shed that would probably outlast both of us. He looked up as I walked in, taking in my expression with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen me through 2 decades of ups and downs. "You look different," he said. "Different how?" "Dangerous. Like you've finally stopped giving a damn." "Maybe I have." "Good. Giving a damn was making you soft." We worked in comfortable silence for most of the morning, the familiar rhythm of construction providing a counterpoint to the chaos in my personal life. There was something satisfying about building things, creating order from raw materials, making something that would last. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. "Mom says you're being weird. What's going on?" I typed back, "Ask your mother." "She won't tell me anything. She just keeps crying." "Then maybe you should ask Hayes." The response came immediately. "That's not fair." Fair went out the window when your mother decided to redecorate our marriage. If you want answers, ask the people who created this situation. I turned off my phone and went back to work. Let them figure it out without me for once. Let them deal with the consequences of their choices without expecting me to clean up the mess. That evening, I drove to Elite Fitness for what would be my last workout. Hayes was training a client when I arrived, a blonde woman in expensive workout gear who hung on his every word. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her until she turned around. Janet Morrison, wife of the bank president. Mother of 3, pillar of the community, president of the PTA. She was gazing at Hayes with the same expression I'd seen on Ayla's face, hungry and desperate and completely unaware of how obvious she was being. "Rhett!" Hayes waved me over. "Perfect timing. I was just telling Janet about your progress. You should be proud of yourself, man. The transformation has been incredible." "Thanks. I've learned a lot." "That's what we're here for, helping people become the best version of themselves." I nodded and headed to the weight room, but I could feel Hayes watching me, trying to read my expression. He was starting to realize that something had changed, that the dynamic between us had shifted in ways he didn't understand. I worked out with methodical intensity, pushing through exercises with a focus that had nothing to do with fitness and everything to do with preparation. I was getting ready for something, though I wasn't entirely sure what yet. After my workout, I found Hayes in his office, updating client files on his computer. The door was open, but I knocked anyway. "Great session today," he said without looking up. "You're really hitting your stride." "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For opening my eyes, for showing me what I was missing." He finally looked up, confusion flickering across his features. "I'm not sure I follow." "You've taught me that nice guys really do finish last, that playing by the rules is for suckers, that if you want something in this world, you have to take it." "Rhett, I think there might be some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding at all. I see everything clearly now." I turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "Oh, and Hayes, you might want to be more careful about where you park your truck. Small towns have big eyes." I left him sitting there, trying to process what I'd just said. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Let him spend the next few days looking over his shoulder and jumping at shadows. The game was just beginning. The beauty of a small town is that everyone thinks they know everyone else's business. The curse of a small town is that everyone thinks they know everyone else's business. I'd spent 20 years being predictable, reliable Rhett Vossen, the guy who paid his bills on time, never caused trouble, and always took the high road. That predictability was about to become my greatest weapon. I started with research, spending my evenings at the public library instead of drinking at Mick's Tavern. Mossfield's librarian, Mrs. Patterson, was a sweet woman in her 60s who remembered when the town mattered. She helped me navigate the digital archives, pulling up property records, business licenses, and court filings with the enthusiasm of someone who rarely got to use her skills. "Researching local history?" she asked, peering over her reading glasses. "Something like that." What I was really researching was Hayes Rellin's history, his business practices, his financial situation, his relationships with clients and creditors. Information was power, and I was building an arsenal. Elite Fitness was leveraged to the hilt. Hayes had borrowed heavily to fund his expansion, using the gym equipment and building improvements as collateral. He was also behind on several payments, utilities, insurance, loan installments. The successful businessman image was mostly smoke and mirrors. More interesting were the patterns I found in public records. Hayes had a history of relationships with married clients that ended badly. In his previous location, 3 different women had filed restraining orders against him within a 6-month period. He'd left town quickly after that, relocating to Mossfield with a clean slate and a new set of potential victims. I wasn't his first mark. I wouldn't be his last unless someone stopped him. Armed with this information, I began phase 2 of my plan: social engineering. Mossfield ran on gossip the way cars ran on gasoline. Mrs. Bragg was the primary distributor, but there were secondary networks: the coffee shop, the beauty salon, the church social committee. I started planting seeds, casual observations that would grow into larger conversations. Hayes seems to be doing well for himself, I mentioned to the barber while getting a haircut. Business is good, I hear. Lots of dedicated clients. Very dedicated. Some of them practically live there. Well, fitness is important, especially for people our age. Absolutely. Though I wonder sometimes about all those late-night training sessions. Seems like a lot of extra work. The barber's scissors paused for just a moment. Late-night sessions? Oh, probably nothing. I just noticed cars in the parking lot at odd hours. But I'm sure it's all legitimate business. Bye.